Every year, millions of people around the world celebrate Easter. But have you ever noticed something strange? Easter never falls on the same date. One year, it is in March. The next, it is in April. Sometimes, it feels early. Sometimes, it feels impossibly late. There is a reason for this chaos, and it is not random. The way we calculate Easter involves ancient astronomy, moon cycles, church councils, and mathematical formulas so complex that computers still struggle with them today. By the end of this video, you will understand why Easter is the most mathematically insane holiday on the calendar. Let us dive in. First, let us establish the basics. Easter is a Christian holiday commemorating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. According to the Bible, this event occurred on the Sunday following the Jewish festival of Passover. Passover itself is tied to the lunar calendar, which is based on the cycles of the moon rather than the solar calendar we use today. This is where the trouble begins. Our modern calendar, the Gregorian calendar, is solar. It follows the Earth's orbit around the sun. But Easter is anchored to a lunar event. Right from the start, we're trying to marry two completely different systems of timekeeping. It is like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Now, you might think the early Christians would have just picked a fixed date and called it a day. But they did not. They wanted Easter to maintain its connection to Passover, to honor the historical timing of the resurrection. So they needed a rule that would work across both calendars. In the year 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea gathered to settle this and many other disputes in the early church. They established a rule that has governed Easter ever since. Easter must fall on the first Sunday following the first full moon that occurs on or after the spring equinox. Read that again, the first Sunday, after the first full moon. On or after the spring equinox. It sounds simple, but it is anything but. Let us break down what makes this so complicated. First, the spring equinox. This is the moment when day and night are roughly equal in length, and it marks the beginning of spring in the northern hemisphere. In reality, the astronomical equinox can fall on March 19th, 20th, or 21st, depending on the year. But the Church does not use the actual astronomical equinox. They use a fixed date, March 21st. This is the ecclesiastical equinox, a standardized date for calculation purposes. Already, we are diverging from reality. We are using a pretend equinox. Next, the full moon. You would think this is straightforward, right? Just look up at the sky and see when the moon is full. But no. The Church does not use the actual astronomical full moon either. They use something called the ecclesiastical full moon, which is calculated using tables and formulas that approximate the lunar cycle. These tables were created centuries ago and are based on a lunar month of 29.53 days. Over time, these calculations drift slightly from the actual phases of the moon. So we are now working with a pretend equinox and a pretend full moon. We are 2 layers deep into abstraction. Now comes the Sunday requirement. Easter must fall on a Sunday because the resurrection, according to the Gospels, occurred on a Sunday. But Sundays cycle every 7 days, independent of lunar or solar events. So now we are juggling 3 different cycles: the solar year, the lunar month, and the 7-day week. These cycles do not line up neatly. A solar year is about 365.24 days. A lunar month is about 29.53 days. A week is exactly 7 days. There is no common multiple that makes all 3 align perfectly. This is why Easter bounces around. Let us talk numbers. Easter can fall on any date between March 22nd and April 25th. That is a 35-day window. The earliest possible Easter occurs when the ecclesiastical full moon lands on March 21st, and that day happens to be a Saturday. Easter would then be the next day, March 22nd. The latest possible Easter happens when the full moon falls on March 20th, just 1 day before the ecclesiastical equinox. You then have to wait for the next full moon, which occurs about 29 days later on April 18th. If that day is a Sunday, Easter would be April 18th. But if it is a Monday, you wait until the following Sunday, April 25th. This combination is extremely rare. The last time Easter fell on March 22nd was in 1818. It will not happen again until 2285. The last time it fell on April 25th was in 1943, and it will not happen again until 2038. Now, here is the wow moment. The thing that makes this truly insane is because the lunar cycle and the solar year do not align. The date of Easter follows a pattern that repeats roughly every 5.7 million years. Yes, you heard that right. Millions of years. Mathematicians have calculated that the full Easter cycle, accounting for all the variables, has a period of 5,700,000 years. To predict the exact date of Easter far into the future, you would need to account for the drift of the lunar orbit, the precession of the equinoxes, and even the slowing rotation of the Earth. This is not just a calendar problem. It is an astrophysics problem. But wait, it gets even more complicated. Not all Christians celebrate Easter on the same day. Western churches, including Catholics and Protestants, use the Gregorian calendar. But Eastern Orthodox churches still use the older Julian calendar for calculating Easter. The Julian calendar was replaced by the Gregorian calendar in 1582 because it was drifting out of sync with the solar year. The Julian calendar assumed a year was exactly 365.25 days, but the true solar year is about 365.24 to 2 days. That tiny difference adds up. By the time of the Reform, the calendar was off by 10 days. Eastern Orthodox churches did not adopt the Gregorian reform, so their Easter calculation uses the older, less accurate calendar. This means Orthodox Easter usually falls 1 to 5 weeks after Western Easter, though occasionally they align. So why do we still do this? Why not just pick a fixed date and move on? There have been proposals. In 1928, the British Parliament passed a law to fix Easter to the Sunday after the second Saturday in April, but the law required agreement from other Christian denominations, and that agreement never came. In 1963, the Second Vatican Council expressed openness to assigning Easter to a specific Sunday, such as the second Sunday of April. But again, nothing came of it. The Orthodox churches have been particularly resistant to change, viewing the traditional calculation as a matter of theological importance. And so we continue to use a system designed in the 4th century, based on approximations of celestial events, juggling 3 incompatible cycles. There is something oddly beautiful about this. In an age where we can predict eclipses centuries in advance and land robots on Mars, Easter remains wild and unpredictable. It refuses to be pinned down. It is a reminder that our calendar, something we take for granted as fixed and logical, is actually a patchwork of compromises and historical accidents. Easter is a living fossil, a relic of ancient astronomy embedded in the modern world. So next time someone asks you why Easter changes every year, you can tell them it is not just a quirk. It is the result of trying to reconcile the sun, the moon, and the 7-day week, using rules established 1,700 years ago. It is a problem so complex that it touches on mathematics, astronomy, history, and theology all at once. It is, in a word, insane. But it is also a beautiful reminder of how deeply our modern lives are connected to the ancient past. If you found this fascinating, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We explore the strange, the unexpected, and the oddly explained every single week. And drop a comment below. Did you know Easter was this complicated? What other holiday traditions have hidden complexities? I would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.